Citius, Altius, Fortius. These three Latin words have been inspiring Olympians and Paralympians since 776 BC. Citius, Altius, Fortius. Swifter, higher, stronger. I like these words because they put us into the mindset and put me into the mindset that you can have your best performances today, but be even better tomorrow. Because the words are not written in their superlative form of swiftest, highest, or strongest. If they had been written that way, anytime an Olympian or a Paralympian or anyone that has any type of talent that they're trying to press forward through tomorrow, there's nothing there to strive for. There's nothing to be better with because you have your best performance and that's it. But these words challenge us to be better tomorrow than we are today. A cellist, when I played cello back in the 8th grade and all the way through my senior in high school, every time I practiced, I got a little better. Still can't play worth a doggone, but you get a little better. As a singer, you can practice and get better. Whatever thing that you're doing, you can always become better. Citius, Altius, Fortius, being great today and greater tomorrow. I was to learn these lessons in a couple of different ways. One, as an individual, and two, as in a team performance. And the first one was I was at the University of Arkansas, and John McDonald, one of the greatest coaches in track and field history, took us down to the Dallas Morning News Invitational. It was my first time I was going to run the 55-meter high hurdles. And I actually won the collegiate division that afternoon. And this gentleman in a tuxedo comes up to me and gives me an invitation and says, "Young man, you have just won," see, we're down in Texas, right? "Young man, you have just won the 55-meter high hurdles." And I said, "I know this." So he gives me the invitation and says, "We want you to come back tonight to run in the open division." And I said, "Great." But I had no idea what the open division was all about. So I went back to my hotel room, and one of my teammates, Michael Conley, one of our great triple jumpers, gold medalist and silver medalist, he says, "You're going to be running tonight against your heroes, against your role models." And I said, "What do you mean?" "You know, the Greg Fosters, the Ronaldo Nehemiahs, they're here tonight, and you're in the open division with them." And I got a little nervous, but at the same time, I was very excited to run this race. So I went through my little file in the room and pulled out my drawer, and I got my little 35 millimeter camera that had the little advancer. And I took that with me to the track because I was going to see my heroes and role models for the first time. As I went down in the Dallas Morning News area to work on my starts and everything, I took out my camera. And I recognized immediately Greg Foster. And I ran over, "There's Greg Foster, click!" And I saw Ronaldo Nehemiah, "Oh, Ronaldo Nehemiah, click, click, click." And I was just having a great time with my camera. And then they called us to the start line. So there I was in lane number 4. And that great booming announcer's voice, I had Greg Foster, Ronaldo Nehemiah right next to me, and I'm right here in lane 4. And so the booming voice of the announcer says, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dallas Morning News Invitational. This is event number 63, the men's 55-meter high hurdles. In lane number 2, please welcome the current world record holder at this distance, Mr. Gregory Foster." And the crowd goes wild. Okay, the crowd goes wild. This is audience participation. Yeah. In lane number 3, he's just returned back from the San Francisco 49ers. He is the first person to run under 13 seconds in the 110-meter high hurdle distance. Please welcome Mr. Ronaldo Nehemiah. Crowd goes wild. In lane number 4, John Register, University of Arkansas. In lane number 5, now I'm ticked. just blew right over my name. I'm going to show these guys what for. So we get to our blocks. Starter calls us to that bird dog set position, and the gun goes off, and I shot out of the blocks. And I swear to you, to this day, when I looked up, I saw the best hurdle race of my life. So at the end of the race, there I stood in a state of euphoric dissidence. I had done a superb job of running that afternoon, but I didn't have a great performance. I had run against my heroes and role models, but now I was dejected because they just wiped me clean over those 5 barriers. And as I sat down in a chair and took my seat, readjusting my spikes, a woman comes over and she sits down next to me. And through her gum popping and roll necking and all this stuff, she said to me, "Young man, I saw you this afternoon, and I saw you win the 55-meter high hurdles. And I saw that gentleman give you that invitation to come back later on this evening in order to compete against, obviously, your heroes and role models. And what you did today, as you were down there watching you warm up, you had your camera there and you were taking all these pictures and failed to do a proper warm-up. So you got what you deserved as you were sitting here right now. And one more thing, you dishonored your invitation." She said, "What you need to do, young man, is you need to take those pictures, develop them, go back to Arkansas, put them up on your wall, circle bullseyes around them, come back here next year and beat them." And she let me sit in that silence for about 15 seconds, and she got up, and off she walked. On the ride home, Mike Conley said, who had witnessed the exchange, "What was Jeanette Bolden talking to you about?" Now, Jeanette Bolden was our 4x100-meter gold medalist from the 1988 Olympic Games, 1984 Olympic Games in Los Angeles. And she had taken time out of her schedule just to come down and pour into me this kind of butt kicking, and got up and walked away. So I did what Jeanette said. I took those pictures home, I put them up on my wall, I circled bullseyes around Greg Foster and Ronaldo Nehemiah, and I came back the next year at the Dallas Morning News Invitational, and I again won the collegiate division of those high hurdles. And when I got that invitation, I went down in the basement, I left my camera in the hotel room. And I did my proper warm-up, and I got to the start line, and again, the announcer blew right over my name. But I was ready. And when we came to that bird dog start, and the gun went off, I looked up, and I was leading over the first hurdle. And I led over the second hurdle. And I swear to you, to this day, it was then, as I approached the third hurdle, I saw the second best hurdle race of my life. But the difference was I had competed. And why I share that with you today is because what I learned from that one moment is that there was some growth that happened there. This one person that saw more in me than I actually saw in myself. I knew I was pretty good. She saw greatness. And she wanted to get that out of me in the way that she could formulate those words. It was Sitius, Altius, Fortius, being great at that time, but being greater the next year. The second part of this is about sustainable growth. How do you keep that momentum going? Once you have it, once I had it, how do I continue to move forward with that press of understanding this kind of new normal? And so as I began to think about how I'd move forward, I came across a gentleman by the name of Harry Edwards, Dr. Harry Edwards. And there's a philosophy that Dr. Harry Edwards has as a sociologist, works for the San Francisco 49ers, of sustainable growth, sustainable change. How do you keep it going? And one of the things he says is that there are 3 things that need to happen. One, you have to have a talented, developed pipeline of talent that is moving forward. The second thing you have to have is a pervasive demand. The pervasive demand is that if somebody sees something wrong, there's a press upon a group of people to change that which is wrong. And the third thing is the institution that needs to actually change has to want to change. Without any of those three things, you do not have a sustainable change model. Case in point, you go back and you look at Augusta Nationals. Augusta Nationals back in 2012 did not allow women into the golf course. And for the first time, the woman that was leading the Xerox Foundation, or the Xerox corporate sponsors of the event, for the first time was a woman. All the other men that were in that position before her were awarded the green jacket for honorary membership into the club, but she was not. So you have a pipeline of talent of these, of course, women that are able to play golf and are rich enough to get into Augusta. And you have a pervasive demand now that says, we need to fix this and change it. Now, we're talking 2012. But the institution that wants to change is citing all these rules, laws, and regulations about, well, the Boy Scouts are the Boy Scouts because they only have this. And the Girl Scouts remain the Girl Scouts. We're going to cite those same reasons for having our all-men's club. It was the same thing back when Tiger Woods did it in 2004. It was all white, and the jockeys were all black. Or the golf caddies were all black. And that was the way that it just went, because they had that precipice. So what they did to bow to the pervasive demand was they allowed two women in. They allowed Darla Moore, a brilliant businesswoman, and Condoleezza Rice, former Secretary of State now at Stanford. And those two were allowed in, but did that actually change Augusta? 2014, we now have it. It's now open, but we still only have very few women that are actually playing, unless they're playing along with a man that is a member of the club. So what you get is a status quo. What we get is a status quo. We get a quota system if you don't have that. The way it should work is how the University of Arkansas's John McDonnell did it. He saw that he wanted to win these 42 national championships, and I was a part of 4 of those championship teams. And what he did was, if you look at a track and field team, a track and field team is very diverse. You have the horizontal jumpers, you have the high jumpers, the vertical jumpers, you have distance runners, you have weight throwers, you have hurdlers, you have short sprinters, you have long sprinters, you have the long distance runners, and everybody has a different body shape and different body type, and they come from all across the country. It's a very diverse group. So John got these folks together, and he took us up the mountain to make a trail for the distance runners, a half-mile loop, widening out the trail up in the woods of Arkansas. Now, I'm a city kid from Chicago, Illinois, and there are critters up in the mountains in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I wasn't having it. I had never sawed down a tree, and I'd never seen a snake fall out of a tree as I was sawing it. And seeing a snake outside of a zoo was just a foreign concept to me. I wanted to run in the opposite direction. Why do I have to saw down these trees and keep this trail wide for the distance runners? They run distance. I run hurdles. I long jump. I don't do this stuff. But as we're doing this weekend over weekend, the team kept getting closer and closer together. We started understanding how each other ticked. So we went down to the national championships in 1985 in Austin, Texas. It was 10 o'clock, it was 9 o'clock at night, and the 10,000 meters was just about to go off. About 30 some odd, way too many laps to count around the track. The stadium was empty, watching these runners, and no one's there except for the Arkansas Razorback track and field team. And what we did was we positioned ourselves every 100 meters. And anybody from Arkansas here? All right, Brian in the back. Yeah, thanks for coming out, man. So what do we do, Brian? Woo Pig Suey. We call the hogs. And we're going to call the hogs tonight. Every 100 meters, we will call the hogs. And it goes something like this. I'm going to raise my hands. You're going to say, woo. All right? Now I'm going to come down like this. You're going to say, pig. And when I raise them up again, you're going to say, suey. All right? We're going to do that 3 times. All right? Ready? The last time I'm going to do it, you're going to punch it off with a big razorback. Okay, here we go. Pig, suey. Right, one more time. 2 more times. Woo, pig, suey. One more time. Woo, pig, suey. Now razorbacks. Razorbacks. There you go. That's so easy. And we would do that every 100 meters. And our three guys that were sitting on this one kid from Texas, and that kid from Texas had to hear that woo pig suey every 100 meters. He was being demoralized, and he had no reason to understand what was going on. He had no idea what was happening to him. And as our three guys were sitting behind him, they looked up with a half mile to go into the stands where John McDonald, our head coach, was. And John McDonald, with his thick Irish accent, said, well, I'm going to decimate right now, said, "Wrap it up, boys." And 1, 2, 3 guys went past that kid from Texas. And for the next half lap, they finished 1, 2, and 3. Now, where do you think our little friend that was leading that race for that whole time finished? 4th? No. Not last. 11th. He had led that race the whole time and went back to 11th because he had no support system. He had no support structure. It was about the sustainable growth of that team that we had. He had nothing like that. He was the status quo. He was a quota system. We were a well-developed, rounded team. Those are the two things that impacted my life so much towards that inspiration, that when I finally made it to my moment, my one time on the medal stand in Sydney, Australia, after going through life's changes, I didn't think about the 6 jumps I had that afternoon when I was standing there in the second place position. I didn't think about the 15,000 hours that I had trained over my lifetime. What came back to me were those moments of a Jeanette Bolden, of a John McDonald, of my family, of Alice Register, and my sons, and my daughter, and my mom and dad, and everyone that had inspired me to get to this one moment in time. So as the flag was being raised, and I honored it and saluted it from being a soldier, and as I saw the flag being raised, it was about this one moment in time where the world pauses, where you could hear a pin drop in the stadium. And I realized at that moment that it's more than just my experience, it's a collective. And we're all in this together. We all have that power of inspiration. We all can be great today and greater tomorrow. That was my greatest gift. Citius, Altius, Fortius. Great today, greater tomorrow. Thank you.